Welcome to the Man Badger Fan episode 3. Happy to be back. With us is Chris Smith9, the D4 respondent, per usual. And now back in the fold, Fremdog Millionaire, the OG men are back. Frem, welcome. Glad that you hopped on the Badger bandwagon here.
You think I'm just on a bandwagon?
No, but me and Chris were talking. We think it's us that got you into Badger basketball, and we just feel proud of that.
That's a nice sentiment. I'll let you believe that for the That's very far from the truth, but I'll let you believe that. Whatever makes you feel good. Oh.
We didn't know if you were like more of a Gardner and you just like were on that Marquette train, like
no,
kind of the Milwaukee blood and
no.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in the Milwaukee area. For context, my family has roots from Fond du Lac, so there's some Travis Steiner vibes there, and yeah, I respected Marquette, liked the early Marquette days with D Wade. Always was like a close like number 2, Marquette fan, but yeah, Wisconsin's been in my blood from as long as I can remember.
Did Marquette with Wade? Did they get to a Final Four?
Yes. Yep.
They did. They didn't win the Natty though, right?
No, they got blown out by Kansas in the semifinal game. It was an awful semifinal game that no one wants to remember. It was a terrible, 20-plus point blowout. Yeah.
So awesome that Kansas sucks this year. It's awesome.
I'm glad. Yeah, very glad Kansas is not good because they've.
So because Frem said he was also a Marquette fan, I feel like we did convert him because you can't be both.
Yeah, right.
I married somebody who went to Marquette. It's complicated.
Yeah, we didn't even think about that.
There's a lot of
sometimes marry in,
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Gardner with the Vikings.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like Gardner with the Vikings, yeah.
Big Vikings fan.
He's 60-40 pack, but 40% Vikings.
Yeah.
Still pretty high.
I can kind of go that split, like with Badger Marquette. I can kind of go that way, yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, the Oscars just happened on Sunday. First off, did you watch?
Did watch, yes.
You did? Okay, and I didn't. I don't know what Best Picture was. I don't even know what movies I've seen out of all those.
If you're into animated films, for those that have kids or younger kids, Wild Robot was nominated for some stuff. If you haven't watched it, it's a really good movie. Not like it's cheesy to some degree, as like little kid movies are, but there's actually some really cool themes, and just the graphics and music was really good. Really well done. So, and it got, I think, like sound effects. They had some different nominees. So that was pretty cool.
We're not even going to talk about who actually won the Oscars, but really what we wanted to say is, in honor of the Oscars, who is your favorite Oscar of all time? Frem, start us out.
Well, outside of the great Oscar Robertson, I would say the Custard. Oscar's Custard is my favorite Oscar. I don't know if you like that pivot or not, but that's my favorite Oscar I can think of offhand.
It's another Milwaukee staple. So.
It is.
All right. Chris, favorite Oscar?
My favorite Oscar is Oscar Gutierrez Rubio, also known as the Hall of Fame WWE wrestler Rey Mysterio. I had to look this up. His name is Oscar Gutierrez Rubio. But I grew up a huge WCW fan. Rey Mysterio was I think he was in the cruiserweight division, and he was just electric. And the fact that he was still going up to even a few years ago, he might even still be going, I don't know. But I love Rey Mysterio. Turns out his first name's Oscar. So I'm going with that.
That WCW video game, I think in 99. Oh, it's so good. That was by far, I think, the best wrestling game I ever played. Yeah.
It was the first one that had entrance musics. N64 revolutionized gaming, I think.
Yeah, just even the gameplay of that was so good. It was just so fun. My favorite Oscar is number 8 for Chelsea. This Brazilian wonder kid who I think played for Chelsea for 5 years.
Okay.
And he was just fun to watch. He actually looked really young, out there. He's kind of like a, fresh-faced Brazilian kid. And he just put out some awesome goals. And me and Nate Mazurk in particular had huge hopes for him. He ended up going to China, which we were kind of like, he's just going to waste away there. But he's like enjoyed an amazing career in China, and I think he's been one of the best Chinese, players in the Chinese league for like the last 10 years or something crazy like that. So, but yeah, obviously wanted to get away from the competition of the EPL, which is kind of shocking. And that brings us to our first real men of genius, Mr. Overtly Competitive Game Night Guy. Could see one of you being this. Today we celebrate you, Mr. Overly Competitive Game Night Guy. For you, game night isn't a casual hangout. It's a blood sport. While others play for fun, you play for legacy. You've studied Monopoly loopholes like it's the U.S. tax code, and you once sent a friendship-ending text over disputed Uno reverse card. Which, by the way, kids carry those, and they just bring them out.
They do.
I've seen it.
It's a thing. Okay. You argue the rules with Supreme Court level passion because nothing says relaxing evening, quote unquote, like threatening litigation over a game of Pictionary. When someone tries a house rule, you remind them, this house is a dictatorship. You practice poker faces in the mirror and consider winning at charades your greatest life achievement. And when you lose, you immediately schedule a rematch. Because if Vengeance had a board game, you'd be the face on the box. Mr. Overly Competitive Game Night Guy. Because when it comes to game night, second place is just the first loser. Speaking of second place, Wisconsin loses to Michigan State 71-62 at the Breslin Center. You could tell from the telecast that the Breslin Center, it was rocking. Would have been a cool, game to be at, even in the loss, just to feel the atmosphere. Let's start with you, Frem. What's one or two things you noticed from the game that just really stood out to you?
I'm going to be short. I kept my expectations really low going in to play at Sparty's house, which I'm glad you named the center for us because I don't know if I honestly remember. That'd be a good trivia game, college basketball arenas. But that aside, I'd like to distract myself from the rest of the segment. Just this Bucky team, really high on them. I wanted to tell you both recently that I've never had more excitement about the Wisconsin Badgers, but going on the road, a lot of hesitation here. I'll let Chris elaborate more, but our poor shooting from the outside, brutal in general. But I mean, I think I just want to spin to the positive because my momentum with this team is in the positive, and I think this is hopefully will be a blip on the radar. Our ability to hang with people on the road, play competitively, and looking at that shooting percentage, 15.6% with 32 attempts. That's dreadful from outside. And for us to still lose by single digits and hang in there down the stretch, I think is just incredible. So I think my belief in this team is our ability to hang even when we can't shoot the ball. And that gives me a lot of confidence moving forward into postseason play.
Yeah, for me, I think rebounding stood out. I mean, I've talked a lot, and Phil and I have gone back and forth. I still feel like rebounding is going to be our out in the NCAA tournament because when we face teams with either bigger bigs or just more physical bigs, we really do struggle on the boards. Nolan Winter had 17 rebounds, by the way, which is the most since I believe Alondo Tucker had 18. And I don't remember the year, but I saw that stat. It was interesting. But we, in the second half, I feel like we got stops when we needed to, but then we couldn't secure the rebound. I mean, it was brutal. There was probably 3 or 4 of those possessions where, honestly, Michigan State wasn't shooting that well either, but we just couldn't get the ball back. So that was disappointing. Frem alluded to the three-point line. I think that's more of just an anomaly. We just didn't shoot well. And honestly, the looks were good. Here's one thing that I don't know if a lot of people paid attention to or noticed, is that Xavier Amos didn't play a lot. Apparently he tweaked his ankle in practice like the day before or a couple days before, and we just weren't able to go deep on our bench. And when you have Klesmet and Amos out, that's 2 of your probably better three-point shooters. Not that they've been super consistent all year, but guys that you kind of trust behind the line, which made Marcus Ilver play, Carter Gilmore play more, Jack Janicki play more. So it just didn't feel like we had our best players out on the court. And Kamari McGee probably had his worst day of the season. So I think all that made a difference. I think we overall played well, especially on the defensive end. Like I said, we just couldn't quite secure stops late in the game. And when you give a team second and third chances and the crowd's going crazy, I think that's a big game changer, trying to win a game against a top 10 team on the road.
Well, and it's just funny because last week we were like, yeah, it's almost good. Not good that Klesman got hurt, but like it gave all these more athletic players, I think, on some level, the chance to kind of shine, and they did. This must be by far the most minutes Kamari McGee has played all year. It was 35 minutes. And it's weird to say that we missed Max Klesman, but we missed Max Klesman just because of the experience. I think of that Purdue game where he didn't shoot that many shots, but he took clutch shots and had I think bigger plays throughout that game, even defensively, that, yeah, we actually missed in this game. Now, in terms of defensively, he would have definitely, I think, struggled with a little bit of the Michigan State guards because they were quick, right? And I think you got to, on some level, you just got to hand it to Michigan State. Played tenacious D in the last 7 minutes. I think our looks were good from three. Even a lot in the second half. Just didn't shoot well enough. And I think the injury to Klesman, the injury to Amos, and then, you shoot 5 for 32 from three, which is 15%. Man, although otherwise, if you look across the board at the stats, it's not that different. But I think what you could see, especially in the second half with Michigan State, is they did the pick and roll. They played this pick and roll, and it wasn't like kind of a regular pick and roll where the point guard's at the top of the key. They almost like played a screen off of it before entering the pick and roll. And man, they just killed us. And if you look at the assist numbers, Michigan State had 20 assists. We had 9.
Yeah.
So a lot for us was this kind of one-on-one play that for them, I think they just actually generated better offense in the second half than we did. Is there anything else that stood out before we get to the just play of the game? Is there anything else that you wanted to say in terms of just what you saw in the game?
I think what you said, like the bench minutes are just kind of strange. When you look at the box score, Xavier Amos obviously got hurt, only played 2 minutes. Marcus Silver, 2 minutes. Gilmore, 16. Janicki, 13. So basically all your starters went 30 plus. And it was a great, fantastic college basketball game. But against a team that's that physical and wants to get up and down the floor, that's just not a recipe for success.
Well, let's jump to the play of the game. Friend, for you, what was a major play on either side of the court or either team?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the big highlight that everyone sees is, Nolan Winter hitting that three to bring it close late. I mean, I think it just speaks to, once again, like this team, fighting. It's like how close this game got at one point in time. To me, that is like just seeing a resilient Badger team that can stay in this. And I think another reflection, on the positive side of looking at some of these box score stats is, okay, we're not shooting the ball well, but the resiliency to keep shooting. If you play basketball, if you ever played even a pickup ball, as soon as the ball doesn't go in the hoop, I think for most shooters, there's this like, you start kind of hiccuping right before you even want to shoot, and you want to pause or pass the ball. And so just the resilience to go out there and keep, whether it's, Tanji, McGee, these guys, Blackwell, they're hitting bricks over and over again. They're getting good looks. But just that resilience to keep shooting the ball is encouraging to me. And then a couple late game turnovers there in the last few minutes between Blackwell and McGee there. I mean, those are plays though that you're just like not getting shots up and turning the ball over late. I think that's going to haunt any basketball team. So I think that's, being smart with the ball late, I'll just say.
Yeah, it's 2 of the last 3 games where we've had turnover issues the last 4 minutes in Oregon and Michigan State. So something that we need to be aware of moving forward. My play of the game is actually the play right after you're talking about, Frem, that Winter 3. That was the sequence where Tanji lost the ball underneath, Michigan State saves it, and it leads to that lead-out dunk for Michigan State to go up 60-57. I just feel like that play re-energized the crowd because Badgers came back. I mean, they got it within 1. He hits that dunk, Michigan State goes up 3, and we just never recovered from that. So I think that dunk sort of got the crowd into it. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but Tom Izzo was all sorts of fired up yesterday. And he did a great job working the refs and working the crowd. And I just felt like that was the moment where it was like, I don't know if we can come back anymore. Like, we kind of gave them our best punch, and that was it. So still think it probably was a travel, but the dunk was awesome. You can't take that away.
The dunk was awesome, but it is a travel. And actually, Chris tweeted this out, and it went viral. I think 144,000 views on it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's so cool. I actually saw that, and I was like, oh yeah, that is a travel. And then you sent me, it's like, oh, Chris said that? Like, holy crap, that's awesome. For me, it's early, and it's small, and you might think, well, there's a lot of time in the game left. But it's when John Tanji goes up for a layup, gets fouled, and it's called an and one. And then they decide to take it away. And if you actually look at the replay of it, it was called correctly. And this is early, right? There's 14 minutes left in the first half. But when that happens, right, if they would have actually allowed that to happen, it's 15-4. And then assuming he hits the free throw, because he's hitting 90% of his free throws, it's 16-4. Because they didn't allow it, they missed the shot, or they had some weird thing that happened. And then they get a dunk on the other end off an alley-oop. Same dude, Cohen Carr, who's just a freak in nature. And that's when they started their comeback. So it's 13-6. It's super early in the game. I understand that. But at that point, if you go up 12, and let's say as the first half plays here, maybe they cut into the lead some. But if you go up 6-8 in the first half, I think that's different than going up 2. And granted, the last 5 minutes of the first half, the Badgers score 4 points. Offensively, in that last end of that first half, they did not play well. They just missed shots. For us to go on these stretches of 3 or 4 minutes, we just haven't seen a lot of that this year. And that happened in multiple times this game. To us, we only get 62 points. That's got to be one of our lowest outputs this year. But I think that early play, it just changed the momentum enough where at that point it's 13-6, and then it's with 13 minutes left to go, 15-12. So they're already back up, close to 3. And at that point, it's kind of give and take there. But I think that early play really set a different tone of the game. Who's the player of the game? Either side. Or I guess let's focus Bucky. Frem, who's the player of the game?
I mean, to me, I think it's pretty obvious what Chris said with that previous stat about Winter. I've watched Winter play in many games, and I'm just always desiring more. I'm like, oh, he could be so much better if he did this or if he did that. And so I hope he's a player that we can invest in the future. And I think this is maybe one of his coming out games. Somebody say Nolan Winter. Of a guy who I'd like to see the Badgers. Obviously, I think this is a really exciting year, but I'm seeing some signs maybe of the future here with Badger basketball. So hoping we can build around guys like him.
Yeah, for me, it's also Nolan Winter for all the reasons we talked about. I also liked what Jack Janicki gave in his 13 minutes. Kind of wish he played a little bit more. He had that nice block. He hit a shot. I think he had like a rebound or two. Just 13 minutes didn't feel like enough for him, considering McGee was struggling. So he's kind of he wasn't player of the game, but I felt like he had some good moments.
Yeah, I thought Blackwell, I think for me, outside of Winter, was probably our best player, second best player of the game. He's 0 for 6 from 3. If he's 2 for 6, that might change the game. And it's one of those small things. He looked really aggressive, played really aggressive, hit some really sick fading away jumpers, one toward the end of the first half. Just a tough game overall for Bucky. And Nolan Winter, I think Blackwell are the two that stood out. What is the turning point? And I talked about one kind of at the beginning of the game. Frem, what's the turning point for you in the game?
Well, looking through the game and just reviewing how those sequences went, I think it's 6 points in that last stretch of the first half, and just looking missed shot after missed shot after missed shot. I mean, seeing that first half, you could have really maybe widened the gap here, gotten on a hot streak, and I think it's just this, can you play that opportunistic basketball when there is, the score is, roughly tied, and can you run away and make a run? And so I think, just moments like that in any game is can you take opportunities where they are. You can't let a team like Michigan State hang around. You play them close. They're going to be really tough to beat down the stretch, especially when you're playing the road.
Just to say, at 6:37 is when we get 28 points. We
Right.
score 4 points for the rest of that 7 minutes.
Yeah, that's just wild to me looking back at that and just seeing like all those opportunities. When you look at actually the time marker stamp with the score, it's just wow.
Yeah, we've hit on two of my turning points. Phil, you nailed it in the first half. That Tanji and one changes the whole game. And I talked about the Cohen Carr dunk. But I'll talk about the under 4-minute timeout. We're down 2. We come out of the timeout. We foul Jackson Kohler. He gets an and 1, makes the free throw, goes up 5. Possession on the way back. Blackwell turns it over. And then we never got closer than 5. So, like I said, sort of like the Oregon game in a way where out of that under 4 timeout, we just got sloppy and turned the ball over. That made it insurmountable, that and 1 in general, but then you can't turn it over on the possession on the way back. So I thought that was a killer. And then at that point, it was over.
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think I need to add anything. What I will say, and last game we talked about against Washington, I think we were 23 of 34 from 2. I don't know what our stats were from 2 this game. They definitely weren't as good. But I think in the second half, I think we missed 4 or 5 layups. And this year, we just have not missed layups. That's actually been a key part of, I think, our surge as one of the top 15 best teams in the nation. And we just missed too many layups. And, to the point where it just didn't feel like our game. Because a lot of these are rimming out, or you're close to getting an offensive rebound, and it's give Michigan State credit. They were crazy on the boards, and I think Michigan State. I'd be curious what their fans would say. It felt like they played a very good game throughout. It did not feel like there was any lulls or any lax play really. And maybe the first 5 minutes of the game, you could argue, is probably their worst stretch of the game. But they just played a very complete game, and Wisconsin didn't. And so I think you give credit to Michigan State. Any last thoughts before we move here from either of you?
I think we needed a game like this. I think you needed maybe something to ignite you. I think if anything, this team has shown us they can bounce back from these tough losses, and I think they even need that a little bit going into the postseason. I think we need maybe that reality check of how well we have to play and how you have to show up in the moment. And March Madness. They call it madness for a reason, to not be too cliche, but just how when players show up in this moment, how special of a run you can have. And so hopefully this Badger team is ready for the moment. And I think it was a good test on the road.
Yeah, for me, 2 quick things. Jaden Akins went on that stretch in the first half where he just hit those threes. I can live with that because I don't think he's a great shooter. So whatever, guy just got hot at home, and sometimes that happens. The other thing I just want us to pay attention to as we move forward these next couple of games is I feel like there are moments these last couple, specifically speaking of Oregon and Michigan State, where I think sometimes we go too fast. Blackwell gets out of control. Kamari gets out of control. Like there are times, like I like that we're playing faster, but it's almost like we've gotten even faster lately to a detriment at times. So I'm hoping we can just calm down a little bit and stay efficient on offense.
Yeah, Michigan State was playing fast and furious, right? It felt like they were running, and their athleticism showed. It was impressive, and that I think takes us to the streets, right? Because sometimes you're driving, you're just like, man, I'm looking to the left at a red light, and I'm thinking, could we do this? Chris, tell us about this new Real Men of Genius for us.
Yeah, today we would like to salute Mr. Traffic Light Racer. You don't just drive, you compete. For you, every red light is a starting line, and every Prius beside you is your sworn enemy. Who cares if it's grandma in a Buick? When that light turns green, it's go time. Your secret weapon? Overly aggressive acceleration. Because nothing says mature adult like hitting 60 miles per hour before anyone else even notices the light changed. Your favorite sound? The sweet, sweet roar of pointless victory. You once risked a speeding ticket just to beat a teenager in a rusted out Civic. And if someone dares to pass you, you'll miss your exit just to win the rematch. For you, driving is less about getting places and more about crushing strangers' hopes and dreams. Mr. Traffic Light Racer, because every intersection is a battlefield.
Have you guys driven any of those new EVs?
No.
I know
No.
Phil Smith would be against this. These go up to like 60 miles per hour in like 3 or 4 seconds.
Oh, I have one. I have a brother-in-law. Yes, they're fast. Real fast.
It's crazy. You could like feel them. Like it like drops you back. My friend just got a new EV and it's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah, it's wild actually. You feel like you're in a race car on the road.
Yeah. We have Minnesota coming up. At Minnesota, it's kind of an interesting game. The Barn. Which have any of you guys been to the Barn?
No,
but I have family that go to the Barn and have told me all about it, and I know how it's set up. It's kind of a relic. It's a relic there, though. It's like it's not a great venue, but people like from there like kind of love it. It's interesting.
Well, yeah, I know that like the teams practice like saving balls from going out of bounds because like it drops off, so you could like fall off special. The court. Yeah. Is this a trap game? And for you, how do you guys? What's your prediction with it?
It's another get right game like Washington. I mean, any Big Ten team can show up and play, right? I don't want to diminish any talent they have or any players that may get hot against us, but I think much like Washington, it's a get right game before the tournament, and I think we come out and should win by double digits at the very least.
I think it's 100% a trap game. Minnesota's actually playing well. They just won at Nebraska over the weekend, which is big for them. Like right now they're trending towards not missing the Big Ten tournament, which the first time we played them this year, sitting in the stands, I called them the worst Power 5 team in college basketball. Like I thought they were that bad. So they've really turned it around. I think it's a trap game because this is looked at as an easy week overall. I'm just really hoping our senior leadership gets us through this one. I think it's going to be ugly and probably low scoring. I hope I'm wrong, but we just have to find a way to will this one out.
I'm going to say it's not a trap game, and I think if we had won at Michigan State, it would be. If you actually look at these last games from Minnesota, they did win at Nebraska by 2. That's a good win for them. But they lost to Northwestern by 12. They lost to Penn State by 9. They did beat UCLA by 3. That's you got to take that for what it is. And they beat USC by 3. So they're winning some of these close games. I just don't think we're going to shoot as poorly as we did. And I think, if Klesmit's out, that could be problematic again. But I think Xavier Amos will probably be fine. I think he'll probably be back. And maybe Jack Janicki does end up playing 20 minutes instead of 13 or 15. So I think we win, and I think we win by double digits. And I think with the way that Minnesota's won some of these games, I don't think we overlook them, especially with our last game being at home. And who's our last game here?
Penn State.
Penn State. So, I don't think we're going to overlook Minnesota for Penn State. So, I'm going to say we win comfortably. But playing in the Barn is not necessarily easy, right? I mean, this is Big Ten basketball. All these road games can be difficult on some level. But I do think we come out of the Barn with a win. Who is the most important player for the Badgers this week for you?
Yeah, Tanji's been our guy all year, and so he's got to come out and have a good game here, a bounce back game for him. I mean, he's being looked at as one of the top players in the country right now, so I think you want to see your guy come out and have a good game here. I'll just have a little add on to the Nebraska. They're probably one of the more interesting bubble teams right now. There's some great wins beating Oregon, and I believe they knocked up Illinois as well, but then losing 4 of their last 5, lost to Northwestern, etc. So I don't know. Nebraska's a weird team, so I don't know if that says anything about Minnesota's win over them. I'm with you, Phil. Yeah, I just hope that this is a get right game where we can pad some stats, to say the least.
Yeah, my guy is Kamari McGee because I do think Klesmet sits out this entire week. I think he needs to get healthy. He's been hurt almost the whole year. So I don't know if we'll ever actually get 100% Klesmet or maybe even close to that. So McGee's only hit 1 3 in his last 5 games. And at one point, he was the top 3-point shooter in the nation just based on efficiency. So if he's going to start and he's going to run the offense, I think he has to get more. He has to get hot from behind the arc. Because he's the guy that kind of makes this team go. Like he's the energy guy. So I think if he plays well, I think that will ignite the rest of the team around him. So I'll go McGee to have a nice week.
I think it's Tanji, and here's why. The last 3 games, he's 4 for 24 from 3. He has slumped. Now he's making some better decisions at the basket. He's obviously hitting his free throws. But he's almost, I think, forcing these 3-pointers a little bit because he was hitting some ridiculous 3-pointers. I mean, he can hit these, fade away in the corner threes. I mean, he can do it. And so I think if for him, this is the game to try to get right, knowing that we're going to need some scoring on the road. And I think he's played really well on the road this year. And so I'm going to say for him, just to get good again before Big Ten tournament and then tourney time. We talked a little bit about the Big Ten tournament last time. I think me and Chris, from curious your thoughts, but we're kind of like, man, do we want to win a lot of these games? Do we want to use a lot of energy? But what is the Badgers' ceiling in the Big Ten tournament? How far do you guys think they could get?
Yeah, I mean, even just looking at last year, how we made it to the title game, and what a team that we did not expect to make it. So, it's winning the championship, absolutely. But I'm totally with you, Phil. I just do not think there's a great mojo of winning the tournament in general and expending all your energy in that. So, I mean, if we could come out with, at least win the first round, maybe get a semifinal loss or something, I think that would be kind of a nice way to go and be able to rest going into the tourney. But yeah, it can be special to win the tourney, and you can go back and forth. I know Chris was there last year, but at the same time, it's just at the end of the day, it's just a tournament, right? It's not March Madness. We want to see this team right in the Elite Eight and the Final Four. That's what's really going to make the Badger faithful happy here. So, I mean, but this team has, I think, a really high ceiling, and I don't know if they really have a ceiling. I think this team has proven that they can compete with anyone right now.
Yeah, I know we talked about this, so I'll spare. I'm okay if they lose game 1. Here's what I want. I want them to get a top 4 seed, for sure. I want the double bye. But I agree. I think on a neutral court, we might be the best team in the Big Ten, and I do think we can win the tournament. I don't even. Doesn't even matter how we're playing right now. I think we're in a little bit of a slump. But hopefully with this week sort of being like a get right week, I do think we could be well rested and in a good spot in the Big Ten tournament. So I do think they can win it. And although, it's just a tournament, I agree. I actually wholeheartedly agree with that. March Madness is so fluky. If I can win a Big Ten tournament title, that'd be pretty sick.
I just wish it mattered. I think in the seeding, because of where the Big Ten tournament is, right, getting to the championship game, even winning the championship, doesn't really affect your seeding, which I think is the most annoying thing, because on some level it should. You think it should a little bit, even the way that I think ESPN or these other commentators talk about it, that it does. And I actually think that's false. I don't actually think it matters. And if you look at the last 5 years, Wisconsin's been really, really good in the tournament. And in essence, it hasn't mattered at all in their seeding, because if you get to the last game, cool, you might win it, but then the brackets come out 2 hours later. And they're just not making these changes that late. They're just not doing it. So our ceiling, though, is we could definitely win it, right?
Do you guys know how many Big Ten tournaments we've won in the Bo Ryan, Greg Gard era?
I'm gonna say 3.
3, yeah.
3.
Wow. What years?
So we won in 2015. Obviously, that was the magical year. 2008, and then the magical year also of 2004.
Okay. 2004.
Okay.
The Devin Harris year. Yeah. So, it's cool to win it because it is hard to win.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Well, as we're coming into March Madness here, I know that we'll have maybe multiple TVs going, and you're going to want control of the remote. Frem, could you tell us about this new real man of genius here?
Real man of genius. Today, we honor you, Mr. Remote Control Commander. In your hands, the remote isn't a tool. It's a weapon of mass control. You hold the power to pause life itself. And you wield that power without mercy. 1 second, we're watching a movie. The next, we're deep diving cable channels like it's your life's mission. Your fingers move faster than a teenage hacker, and when someone dares to touch your remote, you unleash an emergency tribunal. If there's a sports game, you're watching it, even if you don't know the rules. And if a movie is too slow, fast forward, city, baby. You pause at the worst possible moments, faces frozen mid-sneeze, mid-sob, or mid-scandal. And let's be clear, closed captions stay on, whether we need them or not, because you're a man of precision. Mr. Remote Control Commander, because absolute power clicks absolutely.
We talk about Mark Schultz being a tyrant of the temperature, also a tyrant of the remote control.
So too much power.
He is the commander.
There's a lot of power in a remote.
Mm. Well, yeah.
It's like, I was gonna say, it's like being the holder of the guy playing the music, right? Like, there's a lot of power. You can rally a group of people together through your remote / music choices.
Yeah.
And my daughter Kate, she's just over 1 now. Her favorite thing to find is the remote controller, and it's not even close.
We hide it.
And she's actually learned how to turn on the TV already.
I believe that.
The true American.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. You can find us on the X. Thank you, Elon. YouTube without the video. Don't need the video. Just turn on YouTube. It's great. Spotify, Apple Podcast, and iHeartRadio for those that are somehow using iHeartRadio versus those other things. Thank you for listening. Go Bucky. Should be a good week. Let's get right, boys.
On Wisconsin.